This is LSAT PrepTest 150, Section 4, Passage 2, about philosophy of mind. They're asking the question here, do you actually know your own thoughts, or do you just think you do? This is a medium difficulty passage. The ideas are not too bad, but the passage is sneaky about where they ultimately come down. Now, this is a humanities passage tearing down a common belief. The main point here is that some psychologists argue that your feeling of knowing your own thoughts directly is an illusion. You're actually inferring them, just like you infer what other people think. Now, paragraph 1 is the most important paragraph in this passage. You don't want to skim it. It's opening with the common sense view that you know your own thoughts directly, you guess at everybody else's. Simple enough. But then they drop in a challenge almost immediately. They tell us about how experiments with young children show that kids can correctly describe what's in front of them, but misdescribe their own thoughts about it. So sit with that for a second. The kids are thinking the right things, they just can't tell you what they're thinking. And that gap there is the whole foundation of the psychologist's argument. If you could just look inward and see your thoughts, kids would get it right too, but they don't. So the psychologists conclude that knowing your own thoughts is inferential. It is a skill, not a superpower. And if it's a skill, you could be bad at it. That's why kids mess it up. So you've got to walk away from paragraph 1 knowing that everything after it is built on this one experimental finding. Then paragraph 2 exists to answer a question you should already be asking. If we're really just inferring our own thoughts, why does it feel instant and certain? Why doesn't it feel like we're guessing? And the psychologists use an expertise analogy here. For example, chess. Chess experts say they can just see whether a position is strong with no calculation. It feels like perception to them, but it's not. It's inferences that go so fast that they become invisible. Same thing with your own thoughts. You've been doing it your whole life with billions of reps, so you stopped noticing. And once you stop notice that you're inferring, it feels like you're seeing your thoughts directly. That is the illusion. Now, the chess example is just there to make one point. Expertise makes inference feel like perception. So grab that idea and then move on. Paragraph 3 is where most students get tripped up, and this one's pretty subtle. The paragraph opens with what sounds like a fatal problem for the psychologists. If we're just inferring our own thoughts, does that mean we're basically watching our own behavior from the outside? Like a stranger is guessing what we think. It sounds ridiculous, and the author knows it sounds ridiculous. They have the phrase perilously close there doing real work. It is a signal that this objection has some real teeth to it. But then the paragraph saves the psychologist's argument. They're not saying you watch your own behavior, they're saying you base your inferences on internal cognitive activity that isn't itself thought, like quick sensations and flashes of emotion, stuff that happens inside you privately. And here's why that matters. Because it's private, no one else can access it. No one can ever contradict your self-inference from the outside, and that's why it feels infallible. You're using evidence nobody else can see, so you never get corrected, so you never doubt it. Now, the key move is that distinction in paragraph 3 between external behavior and internal cognitive activity. The whole argument rests on that middle ground. If the psychologists were stuck saying we just watch our own behavior, the theory collapses. But they're not stuck there. They carved out this category of private internal insights. They're not thoughts, but they're not external either. They're signals. And that's what makes the theory work. You could expect the hardest questions in this passage to test whether you understood that distinction. Now, the author does not explicitly pick a side, but you do want to pay attention to the structure here. The author raises the strongest objection to the psychologist's view and then walks you through how they survive it. That's not what you do when you think someone's wrong. The passage is built to make the psychologist's case look solid. If you read the author as being critical or neutral, you're going to miss the lean indicating their opinion. Now, the big trap here is mixing up the common sense view with the psychologist's view. The common sense view says you know your thoughts directly and infallibly. The psychologists say the feeling of directness is itself the illusion. Those are opposites. So every main point question, every attitude question depends on you keeping those clean. Now, before you hit the questions, you want to check yourself on these 3 things. First, can you explain why the children's mistakes matter for the argument? Second, can you say what the chess analogy is actually proving? And third, can you articulate why internal cognitive activity, not external behavior, is what holds the psychologist's theory together? If you're fuzzy on any of those 3, you want to go back to the passage before you touch the questions.